Where do I begin? So, I'm back home obviously, and it has been, that was a tough Ironman, and I actually think it was tougher than the first one I did, because it was, I'm not sure how you would describe, the conditions really. I mean, obviously I was fitter and stronger and all of that sort of stuff, but the conditions were really bad, really bad. So, anyway, so let me start that again. So welcome to my recap of Cairns 2025. It was a hell of a day. The conditions were certainly not conducive to any amazing times. I did a better time than last year by more than 2 hours, which was great, but at the end of the day, it was nowhere near what I was hoping to do, but that was really just down to the conditions. It was a terrible day in terms of the swim and the ride, and there's nothing you can do about that on race day. It is what it is, and that's okay. I don't stress too much about those things. It was disappointing because I had gone in with, great expectations, but, that is what it is. And so I think the other aspect is it's the closest I've come to quitting. And I'll talk more about that in the ride part, where I was literally seconds away from just pulling the pin and saying, nah, this is not going to happen. So, but let's rewind back a little bit, because I want to make sure that I cover all the important pieces during this recap of the race, because there was much more going on than just the race. So basically, if you've watched my previous video, I have gone back to Mildura to see my son run his first marathon, which was fantastic, freezing cold, but fantastic. Somewhere in that trip, I think I picked up a stomach bug, because when I came back to Townsville, I have basically, and sorry for the graphic nature, I haven't had a solid bowel movement since I got back to Townsville. And that still continues to today. It's Wednesday, the following week now, and I still am having stomach issues. So I've obviously got some kind of bug, and although it's not really making me sick, it is just, I don't know, my body, obviously when you've got diarrhea, you're having trouble absorbing food. And in terms of my preparation for the race last week, there was just no carb loading or anything like that. It was just not working. And in fact, the day before the race on the Saturday, I had really actually wound back my food. I actually wound it right back and I literally had sushi for lunch and dinner, a really safe food for me. So the carb loading didn't work because I had diarrhea. But funnily enough, on the Saturday, I actually felt okay. I'd felt relatively crook in the lead up to the race and wasn't really sure what was going to happen, to be honest. Saturday, I felt okay physically. Mentally, I was a bit like, I don't know what this means, but that was okay. And so race morning, again, just stuff still going through me. So not the ideal prep for a race, let's put it that way. And so my stomach just, even today, feels like it's doing backflips all the time. Like it's not, I don't feel sick, like I'm gonna throw up but it's just like I've got some kind of bug that is just stopping my body from absorbing food. And so race day I felt okay, mentally felt okay, physically okay, even though I had to go to the toilet a couple of times before the race. During the race, I didn't actually have any need to go to the toilet, which was great, probably due to the fact that I had stuck to my liquid fueling plan, which I think was a good choice in the end. Not for the reasons I'd originally picked it, but I think it was the right choice for me because of that stomach issues I had on the day. I did have cramps all through the day at different times, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but let's just start with the swim. Very choppy conditions. The wind was already howling before we started the race, so I think the pros probably got the best of it, even though it still wasn't good conditions, and none of the pros thought it was a good swim. Let's put it that way. It was like being in a washing machine. I don't know how else you would describe it. And it didn't look as bad from the shore to me as what it was out there. But I know there were some people pulled from the water, and some people had some really uncomfortable swims. And for me, I was like 20 minutes. I was like a 1:35 swim for me, which is like way over what I would do normally in good conditions. And I swam like 4.13 kilometers or something, so that sort of gives you an idea that I was just way outside my comfort zone there. But that, again, I was just happy to get out of the water at that point, because there was no I don't know how much water I took on. There was certainly a bit of water swallowed, which obviously wouldn't help my wonderful stomach that was helping me out that day. But I felt okay coming out of the water. A little bit of leg cramping towards the end of the swim, which I tend to get in rough conditions for some reason. So once I come out of the water, I basically had a good transition, felt pretty comfortable getting on the bike, and legs and everything felt good. Transition went well. I felt good. I took on as much liquid fuel in that transition as I could. I had a whole separate bottle for that. So that went well. Got out on the road. Actually felt pretty good for probably the first 20 to 30 Ks. Obviously, this is where I need to explain to you that we had I think we probably started off at about a 30 kilometre an hour wind along the coast, which you tend to get. You're always going to get wind on that part of the coast for the Cairns Ironman. The question is how strong it's going to be. And so last year there was a headwind for the same sections as there was this year. It was just way gentler last year than what it was this year. And this year it just kept getting stronger through the day. So it was at least 50 kilometre an hour headwind for about 100 kilometres of the ride. And whilst there was little pockets of protection and stuff, it was horrific. Absolutely horrific is the only way to describe it. So the ride up the coast, the initial part is not too bad. You've got a tailwind, although I wouldn't even call it a tailwind. It sort of behaved oddly. Very different to WA when I did the Busselton half Ironman, where the wind was either blowing right into your face or right behind you. So you sort of just averaged out the same. It's a bit different along the Cairns coast for some reason. Some bits you feel like you should have a tailwind and you don't. And anyway, it's not quite the same. But anyway, the first 40, I don't know, I went pretty well for the first 40 to 50 Ks. Seemed to be, the body was okay. It was still hard to take on enough fluids and fuel. I think that was part of the problem. It's because my stomach didn't feel good. I just wasn't keen to take on any kind of fluids, or, I was, but I was behind my schedule. And so by the time I kind of got to the first turnaround to come back, so 45 Ks in or whatever, I wasn't feeling great. And then you've got the first part of the into the headwind. And that was a struggle, really took it out of me. And I wasn't really sure, I was starting to have doubts at that point as to how my body was going to hold up, and struggled on, not at a good speed. So basically for the first 50 Ks, I averaged about 33 kilometers an hour. So I was doing great, right on my premium time. And then it just slowly dropped and dropped and dropped after that, because the wind was part of it. And realistically, there was no way I was going to do what I considered to be my safe time of 6 hours on the ride, because it just wasn't going to happen. The wind was never going to allow that kind of speed. And you can look at to give you an idea, the average, like the fastest times in my age category last year were like 9 hours 20. This year it was 10 hours 30 was the fastest time. So, and it wasn't the run. No one was slower in the run. It was just the ride. The ride knocked the shit out of everybody pretty much. I didn't see anybody happy with the conditions out there. And so basically got to about the section between about 90 kilometers and 110 kilometers in the ride. I was so close to quitting. I had really bad cramps in my stomach. I couldn't put in any power into the pedals. Was just, it's hard to describe to people. Like I felt like my legs were full of lead. It was really hard to take on fuel and hydration. And I got to one of the aid stations and stopped, and I tried to go to the toilet. I couldn't do anything. But I was there for probably 10, maybe 15 minutes. I don't really know. And the conversation going into my head was, I will try to give this 10 more minutes and see how I go. Because I've never been so close to quitting. And I'm not trying to sound melodramatic. I really was like, I just don't think I can do this. So I decided that I would get back on the bike. I chugged it down like a full bottle of water just to try and keep the hydration going. And got back on the bike and just pedaled gently for 10 or 15 minutes just to see how it's going. And I actually started to feel a little bit better. So by the time I made the final turnaround, with like 70 Ks to go or 60 Ks to go or whatever it is, straight back towards Cairns, all into a headwind, I was actually feeling okay physically. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was just standing up off the bike for a little while, let my intestines untangle themselves, and I didn't, stopped getting cramps. Not really sure what changed, but whatever it was for the best. And I felt quite good for that last 60 or 70 Ks riding back to Cairns into the headwind. And although I would say that it was very unpleasant part of the ride, I actually must have passed 50 people on that part. Like I actually felt so much better. And I wasn't pushing myself, but I just felt like I could ride again. Like I felt like I normally would ride on a ride. So that was really nice. But I was, 7 hours, 10 minutes or something on the ride in total, just under 7 hours, I think. Way over what I had expected. But I guess, when you look at everyone else in the ride. That was about the normal, that people were over what they expected. So I guess you've got to take that, you know, Mother Nature doesn't play fair, and that's all you've got really. So basically, when I got back from the ride, heading into transition, I was just so glad it was over. I was obviously more spent than I would have preferred. Not that it certainly wasn't the plan. The plan was to come off the ride, riding within myself, feeling kind of fresh, so I could hit the run as hard as I could. And I think I knew inside myself that wasn't where I was at. I wasn't feeling that way, but I still felt okay coming off the ride. I knew that I wasn't hydrated enough and I hadn't fueled enough, and I really couldn't take very much in at that point. And this, you know, that was a big part of the problem. And obviously having stomach issues going into the race, you know, it is what it is. I can't control everything. So, but I was glad that I got through the ride. I was really actually pretty proud of myself for fighting through that part in the ride, because I don't know how to paint you a picture. I was as close to quitting as I've ever been about quitting anything. And I was really happy that I got through that and fought through. And it just goes to show sometimes you just need to say to yourself, I'll just take 10 more minutes and let's see how I feel. But anyway, got to the run and was feeling...
G'day, honey. Oh, bye.
Oh.
How you doing?
Oh, that was horrific.
Oh.
Truly horrific. That was the 50 kilometre an hour headwind, and it was just nasty. But anyway, I didn't quit. So
Just a run to go.
just a little jog now, and we'll be right.
Get to it.
Well done.
See you in 4 hours.
Okay, I don't know how to describe how I feel, because my stomach still wasn't right and I could feel that, but the rest of me felt okay. So I hit the run. I had my first liquid fuel and hydration that I was testing out to see how it would go, and I really, again, had a lot of trouble taking it on board. That was my problem really all day. I just couldn't take on enough fuel and hydration, and it was, you know, it ended up being the theme of my day, if you want to put it that way. But so I hit the first 10Ks pretty well at just on an hour, which is the pace that I wanted to hold for the whole race. But as the second hour came on, or partway through the second hour, it was clear that I was not going to be able to hold that. Like didn't have enough fuel, and so because I just couldn't. If I took on too much, then I would start cramping up.
Shane Connolly, go you Shane. 50 to 54 years young. And tonight in Ironman Cairns, Shane, you are an Ironman. Welcome home, buddy. From Vietnam, Tran Minh Nhuc. Well done, Tran. You are an Ironman.
And, you know, it was what it was. So I ended up with a bit over 5 hours in the marathon, and happy to finish at the end of the day. And so it really came down to, not only were the conditions not conducive, you know, and I wouldn't have got near my best, the time that I was aiming for, because of the wind and the swim. But that being said, the bigger problem I had on the day was just being able to fuel and hydrate myself. I was severely dehydrated by the end of the race, and there wasn't really anything I could do about it. I mean, I kept drinking. At all the aid stations, I would stop and have water and either some flat Coke or some hydration mix, whatever they had. But it wasn't enough. Like, once you get behind the 8 ball, you don't catch up when you're racing like that. So I think, but again, it was out of my control. I couldn't replicate what I could do in training because my stomach just wouldn't allow it. So at the end, I guess it was disappointing, but also, again, I was proud that I got through it all. Considering how my stomach was, I was amazed that I got through it, to be honest. I had a lot of doubts leading into the race because of my stomach, because I have never competed feeling like that. Always felt good going into any of the stuff that I've done, which has been great. But this time I wasn't, and I didn't know, at the end of the day, I did the best that I could given the conditions and what my body was doing to me, what my body's still doing to me. So I think overall I was happy to get it done. Obviously I was faster than last year by more than 2 hours, which was great. But I really wasn't, it just didn't all come together on the day, let's put it that way. Not like, and I was far from the only person disappointed. There were a lot of people who had goals set for the race that just were never going to happen. And I guess for me, that's the reason why I won't be back again and again to try and get faster times, because it's not, at some point those things are out of your control, and I don't, you could do everything right, you can prep perfectly and you can have everything lined up, but if your stomach and Mother Nature don't play ball, then it's out of your hands. And I think, it's part of the reason why, I don't have a long-term aim to do a sub 10 hour or whatever in an Ironman, because there's just too many variables that are out of your control in that space. And so as much as it's an amazing challenge, it'll probably be my last full Ironman. I'll continue to do half Ironmans because they are much less impactful on your body. And as much as don't feel like a 50-year-old, my body knows it's 50. And I think, especially my legs, my knees and my feet don't enjoy the marathon. And we'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. But I think, so this will probably be my last full Ironman for, forever, probably. I still intend to do lots of other stuff, but I don't, considering the amount of work that goes into doing one and the recovery and the impact that it has on your body, just balancing it out. It's not something that I'll be doing, 2 of every year or anything like that into the future. It's just too much. And whilst I've really enjoyed the experience of doing it and the immense amount of pride that I feel for having been able to complete it, it's not something that's going to be on my schedule all the time, because it's a lot that goes into it. For anyone who's done one, you know how much time and effort goes into it and how much impact it has on your body. So, but I do plan to continue the fitness journey, just not doing full Ironmans all the time. Because I really enjoyed the Bustleton half Ironman, because you're not destroyed at the end. You're feeling, I felt great after that race, because it's only 6 hours of work, which sounds silly, but so I think that'll be I have some races that I'd like to do around the world in the half Ironman version. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, so next week we'll jump into, well, the next video after this, we will jump into what is next. And I'll get into some more detail about that. But I think for now, I will sign off on this and say that I had it was another great week. And if you're considering doing this kind of stuff, Cairns is an amazing venue. Even with the horrible wind this week, it really is a great place to do an Ironman, and kudos to the organisers and all the volunteers who are amazing. Thank you for all of your work, and I hope that next year there's another 3,000 people who go up there to do the half and the full Ironman, because it really is an amazing event. But I will not be there. I will be thinking about you, and I will check the weather next year at this time. But I hope that I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk soon about what comes next in this journey of mine.